Well, it's a real treat. Anytime I get a chance to interview somebody, particularly somebody that's got a fun accent, that adds a whole nother flavor. So Cedric, I'm so excited that you're joining me today, and welcome to the show, man.
I'm very happy to be here. Thank you for having me, Corey. I appreciate it.
Absolutely. So Cedric, let's just jump right in because your work is on the concept of emotional resolution. And so I
Correct.
think first off, we got to do some defining of what does that mean, and then we'll go from there.
Yeah. So it's called emotional resolution because finding a label for things is not easy, so to speak. But what it does is resolving disruptive emotional pattern,
Okay.
disruptive, challenging emotional difficulties, so to speak, challenging emotions. That's what it's
Okay.
all about.
Okay. And so you're talking about when I have things that happen to me and I have this normal pattern in the way I would respond or react that it's because it's almost ritualistic that it becomes. It's just rote, right? Where it's like I have
That's right.
this happens, I react this way. And so your
That's
your
right.
work is about how do I disrupt that?
That's right. That's absolutely right. Is we have those emotions that keeps on coming back. It can be anger, frustration, it can be anxiety, it can be depression. And over the years, very often we learn to control them. We learn to bottle them down, to not show them, or some of us don't, and we just show them to the world, you know.
Right?
But these emotions there, I mean, they've been serving a purpose maybe in the past, but very often if we could decide consciously to not be triggered, we will say, yeah, I don't need this anger, I don't need this
Right.
frustration, I don't need this anxiety. So all those disruptive emotional patterns that do not serve us per se, we can resolve them.
Okay. So how? Because that begs the question. Because again, this is that element of I'm in the same vein as you in the sense that I think a lot of the patterns we have when we originally created them, they made
Mhm,
sense. They were
mhm.
they were survival mechanisms. They were ways to get what I needed or avoid what I didn't, or because I was a kid and powerless, and so I figured out
Yes,
if I withdraw, that makes me feel safe, or if I
yes.
push back, it gives me room. But then we carry that forward, and it doesn't serve us as well. But it's not as simple as just I just need to stop, right?
You're right. You're right. It's not as simple as that because if we just decide cognitively, that's not going to work.
Right.
Um, Now, the process of resolution is very simple. We understand today neurobiologically how an emotional difficulties is created,
Okay.
and we understand why it is staying in us. Um,
Okay.
in a nutshell, I can tell you we know today that at the origin of every single one of our disruptive emotional pattern, what we just talked about, at the origin, it's always the same kind of event. It's always a trauma.
Okay. So some
Now,
sort of an
what?
event that has brought this about, something that's happened, and that's where it was born from, is what you're saying.
Yes, absolutely. And when we talk about trauma nowadays, we think about I don't know being beat up or no. A trauma in the way that we understand it, the way that I understand it is an instant that hold too much stress, physical or emotional, for
Hmm.
us to take on at the instant when we live it.
Okay, so it's something happening because I'm just to clarify. I just want to make sure I'm
Yes.
tracking with where you're going with this. That if an event that happens and it's too much for us to quote unquote handle, physically, emotionally, mentally, whichever, that's trauma. It's what you're describing.
Yes, correct.
Okay.
Absolutely. Absolutely. That's exactly what
Okay.
it is. And so that start very early on. That can start in the womb, that can start at birth, that can start during the first years. It's most of the time the first 2 years of life, meaning from conception to out of the womb. It's a quote unquote wonderful garden for trauma because we're so vulnerable to our environment.
Okay.
And
Okay.
coming out of the womb for the body physically, right, it's very traumatic for the baby
Yeah.
and for the mom as well. It's I mean, it's physically traumatic. Hmm?
Right. Absolutely.
So that's we understand at the origin of our pattern is always an instant of trauma. And but
Okay.
what is happening during this instant of too much stress? What is happening is if the prefrontal cortex is already developed, when there is too much stress, there is an instant of dissociation. It's a
Okay.
normal mechanism, so we don't suffer too much during
Hmm.
that. Let's say I'm in a bus, I'm 12 years old, and a bunch of boys comes to me to beat me up.
Hmm.
I'm being bullied. If
Hmm.
I get punched during this moment of being bullied, I'm gonna have several pieces of dissociation
Hmm.
because it's too much for me. Boom, 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 boom. So in one event, of course, often I'm gonna have several dissociation. But what's happening during the dissociation is quite fascinating. The prefrontal cortex become inhibited, so we don't
Hmm.
suffer too much. But the prefrontal cortex is what we use to filter information.
Hmm.
What you and we are aware of consciously is about 2,000 bits of information per second.
Okay.
The subconscious mind has a potential to gather 400 billion of bit of information per second.
Right. Yeah, because there's so much more going on that it's aware of than our prefrontal is aware of.
So much more, and
Yeah.
the speed of processing is very different. We process things consciously at about 100 miles per hour. Subconsciously, we process data at the speed of 100,000 miles per hour.
Hmm.
These are the number from the Penn University, and it dates from 2012. But if you go on the net or look for different research, it's always on the same type of
Okay.
ratio, so to speak.
Okay.
But what is happening is during a trauma, during an instant of trauma, there is no more filter. So it's like the subconscious is wide open, and it gathers all this information present within the five senses: what you see, what you smell, what you taste, the
Hmm.
texture around you, and the physical sensation present in your body during this instant of trauma. Is like the gate is open, you gather all
Hmm.
that. But in a non-logical way, is non-linear, is just a
Right.
bunch of
Right.
information coming. So that's what's happening during an instant of trauma, and we lived tenth of these moments in our life.
Right.
I'm convinced of it. I mean, I see
Oh
it
no.
every day with people. And you know that too, I'm sure.
Oh
You
yeah.
know. So now what we understand is another big part of the job's brain is to predict. We
Right.
constantly predict based on past events, based on past experiences. An example that I always take is if you had a Granny Smith apple before, the next time and for the rest of your life, before you bite the Granny Smith apple, you already know exactly the experience you're about to have. You
Right.
predict it.
Right.
It is exactly the same process for emotion. After our trauma, so to speak, our trauma plural, when the body is exposed to one or several elements that were present during one of our trauma, a
Hmm.
smell, a taste, a situation, when we are present, when our body is exposed to one element that was or several elements that was present during a trauma, it is going to automatically, instantly predict what you are about to feel
Hmm.
based on what's felt during a traumatic event. So when I say it is going to predict what you're about to feel, it is going to predict the physical sensations that you're about to feel. This physical sensation, we call that interoception.
Hmm.
We know that we have an emotion because we feel it in our body, because there are sensations in our body. That's how we know that we have an emotion. Now, what we discovered is that we don't know if we discovered it. What we really enlighten, right, highlight is that the physical sensation that we feel in our body during an emotion is an obsolete, an outdated prediction from the brain.
Okay.
Mhm. And what is happening is we'd never let this prediction plays out until the end. One way or another, we control either way our emotion or our environment, the environment that creates the emotion that we experience.
Okay. Say that again, because I think we're
Yes,
on
yes.
onto something pretty deep here, and
Yep.
we'll unpack it more. But say that again.
Yes, yes. You. I'm gonna back off a little bit. We always talk about the impala being chased by the lion, and when the impala escape, is back in a safe place, it's shaking the body, and then the impala graze like nothing happened.
Right.
That's something that we all know about. It's a natural capacity that we all have as mammals. We do too.
Mm-hmm.
The problem is we never let this time of recovery. Every time we experience an emotional difficulties in our life, it's another opportunity to let the body go through the update of the prediction, but we don't do it. When we
Okay.
feel anxious, what do we do?
Yep.
When we feel anxious, we take some breath, we have a glass of water, we have positive thinking, we try to control what create we from the, I mean, I have a 2-year old and I have an 11-year old, and I know that, and I still do that sometimes, right? We teach our kids to control their emotion. If you
Mm-hmm.
feel stressed, this is what you can do. If you feel
Mm-hmm.
afraid, listen, you don't have to feel afraid. So we try to control to make sense of things. It is it's counterproductive to healing.
Right. Right.
So what MRES is all about is to let the body experience the full prediction, the full realm of sensations without
Okay.
interfering with them,
Okay.
without trying to control it in any way, or without trying to control what's going on around you
Mm-hmm.
until the end of the prediction. Now, what's important is you have to do that in a safe place. Your
Okay.
body has to feel safe when you do that. If not, it's not going to work. But another bit of information that's important to say, I think, is this prediction that we feel in our body take between 2 seconds and 90 seconds, never more.
Okay.
So if we can let the prediction plays out without interfering, without trying to understand, without thinking our way out of it, if we let the sensations change in our body until they're done changing, at the end of the prediction, the brain is expecting to be hit by some kind of danger. But at the end of the prediction, during a session, or if the person learned to do it on themselves, at the end of the prediction, nothing is happening. You're safe and sound.
Right.
At that very instant, what was taken as a stimulus for the brain is updated. This
Mm-hmm.
emotion will never come back.
Okay.
It's simple.
Well, yeah, you're speaking my language in the sense that it's simple, but it's incredibly difficult to do because because of what it requires of us, right? It means I have to turn towards because you're speaking a lot of the language I love, Cedric, in the sense that when we're talking about trauma, because the world we're in now, at least this is the experience I've had with some of the guests we've had over the years, most recent years, and then for sure what kind of culture is everything is big capital T trauma, right? And now therefore that should take precedence, and we should be able to create this safe environment, right? That the world
Yeah.
will become safe. And if anything, the pandemic taught us we don't live in a safe world. there's there are things out there that will just kill us. It's just
Yep.
and maim and debilitate us. Absolutely. And not even including other people. So when we're dealing with these kinds of events, the counterintuitive thing like you're describing, this is what I love about it, is I have to turn towards it and learn to deal with it in that moment. That's how I kind of gain new ground, as you're saying.
That's correct. That's absolutely
Okay.
correct. And you said it right? We spend our life trying to step away from the emotion.
Mm-hmm.
Blame, understand, self-blame, you name it. We have a whole battery of coping mechanism. Sometimes it's
Mm-hmm.
self-harm, but what you said is that you have to lean into it. So it takes
Right.
courage.
Right.
It
Absolutely. It
takes
takes
courage. Yeah.
courage.
I call that slaying our dragons, right?
Yeah.
Like we spend our life, dragons are like these emotions that we talked about at the beginning of our conversation, the anger, the anxiety, like, and we spend our life trying to fight our dragons, and often that's anger, to hide from our dragons, that avoidance or escape, to
Mm-hmm.
control our dragons, or to tame our dragons, to please them, to seduce them. But that doesn't get the dragon to to go away, the only way to slay the dragon is to get in its mouth. You've
Hmm.
got to get in, you got to feel it, you got to fall into the emotion, you got to fall into the sensation of the emotion. And that's from the stomach of the dragon. When you're inside the emotion, when you feel the sensations,
Right.
when you don't try to be out there, that you can slay the dragon.
Hmm.
And the dragon rests forever.
So you made a comment as we kind of wind up this segment. Then I got away. I think we should pivot on a little more of a personal side of this with the extended content. But you made a comment of for us to uh, deal with the prediction, right? Because I have an event happen to me or a smell. I had this happen of I was moving some things in the garage years ago, and there was a smell, and in that smell was embedded some something from my past. It triggered it
Mm-hmm.
right away. And then we were on this long drive, and for like the first 2 hours of that drive, my whole gut is in turmoil, right? Because it just threw me off.
Yeah,
And
yeah,
I finally had to talk it through and just out loud. I mean, my wife was there, kids were in the back, but they were little with headphones on, so it wasn't a big deal. But I'm
yeah,
like, I need to just vent some things out. I got to kind of deal with this and also feel it, right? And so
yeah.
you're talking about you have to create a safe space. And yes, that can be done in a professional relationship, therapy, coaching, etc. But
Yes.
how do you also find it within yourself?
Good. It's great. It's a great question. In a way, you don't have to create a safe space. We have to ensure that the body feels safe.
Okay.
And there is an easy way to do that. We learn that by watching animals, because believe it or not, but we do MRS with horses and cows.
Okay.
Um, the first sign of fear in an animal, do you know what it is?
Tell me.
They don't blink. When an animal is exposed to any kind of fear or threat, they stop blinking.
Okay.
So we took this observation for humans as well. In order to know if your body feels safe to do a resolution, the first thing you do is it's closing your eyes. And you know if your body feels safe or not if you can remain with your eyes closed without wanting to open them.
Okay.
So if you can close your eyes and you don't want to peek, for example, driving will not be a good idea,
No,
right?
don't do this
Because you
driving. Absolutely.
no, no, but you can park, go in the bathroom, for example, and you can even take your wife with you because maybe she makes you feel safer, you know. But
Hmm.
it's you close your eyes, and if you can close your eyes without wanting to open it or without any effort, then you know that your body feels safe enough to go through the process.
Okay.
So for kids,
That's
for
good.
example, we teach before the pandemic. We stopped now, but before the pandemic, we taught in school here in San Francisco how to do that. How teacher can do that with kids, and how kids can learn to do that on themselves. And so they have an MRES corner. We created an MRES corner with like pillows and stuff. And when they have an emotion, like they have the suggestion, hey, do you want to go to the MRES corner? And so they go and they see, they do whatever they want, and they feel safe there because they create it for themselves, and they can close their eyes and do through the whole process by themselves.
Okay.
But it's do we know that the body feels safe? Often I talk about spider, like somebody who is really afraid of spider. If a spider is 2 meters away, it doesn't matter if you tell them, oh, the spider is not going to jump on you. If you ask them to close their eyes and they know that the spider is 2 meters away, they're going to want to look at the spider just to make sure. It's not going to
Right.
work. If you want to work on your arachnophobia, you're going to have to step away, close the door maybe. You're still going to feel the fear, but you're going to be okay to close your eyes because there's a door between you and the spider. Then you
Hmm.
can resolve the arachnophobia.
Okay. And that's the idea of just now all of a sudden I need to feel it. I need to experience. I need to like actually turn towards it. Or to use your example with the dragon, I'm just going to climb in it and slay it
That's
from the
right.
inside. Okay.
That's right. And I know it's counterintuitive, but you don't want to talk about it almost. The only thing you want to talk about are the physical sensations in your body.
Okay. That's a
You
good
really
point.
have to create this bridge as like, what sensations am I feeling in my body? And the other secret is you've got to feel at least two sensations at once.
Okay. Why is that?
because because if you only pay attention to one sensation, you're gonna have room to think,
Ah, okay.
and you need to have your mind, your cognitive mind, in quote unquote full attention to what's happening within the body, physically. So for that, the trick is to feel two sensations at once, and those sensations are going to start moving, changing, transforming. Remain in attention as it's changing within you.
Okay. So
That's
basically
the
you start to
prediction.
become more, yeah, you just come attuned to you and what's going on rather than adding labels to it in the sense of wonder where this is coming from and why do I feel this? And instead it's just here's what I'm feeling. I kind of just become totally mindful and aware.
That's that. Why it's there and what's going to happen is irrelevant. The key, remember, is to let the body go to the end of the prediction without interfering with it. With
Okay.
thought, with breath, people sometimes there's I feel my emotion, but they start to take deep breath. No, if you take deep breath, buddy, you are controlling. You're taking deep breath because it's uncomfortable.
Okay.
So we
Okay.
have to stay in the discomfort.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, now you're definitely speaking my language because I think that's where we grow is when I lean into discomfort relationally and in this conversation physically, emotionally,
Mm.
mentally. When I lean into that, I expand my capabilities and my presence.
That's right.
Perfect.
It's
Okay,
all
Cedric.
about that.
So tell people how they can find you as we wind up this first segment.
Yep, they can go to cedricbertelli.com. That's my personal website, or mres.com for the main website for mres, emotional resolution.
And MRES is EMRES.
That's right.
Just so everybody's familiar with that. Okay, well, Cedric, thank you so much for the conversation thus far, and
Thank
I
you.
look forward to keeping it going here in just a second.
Thank you, Corey. Thank you very much.